Welcome to AI Decoded, the show exploring artificial intelligence. As the world reacts to the US president's tariff changes, what is the impact on the future development of AI? The Wall Street Journal says tariffs are now coming for the AI boom, leading to higher manufacturing prices and slower consumer spending, all of which could start to hurt the profits of the US tech giants. Meanwhile, The Verge asks whether the White House used AI to help generate its current global trade policy. The magazine asked AI chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini for an easy way to solve trade deficits and put the US on an even playing field. Researchers say the AI answers they got were remarkably consistent with the trade tariff formula used by the Trump administration. Reuters looks at how China's state-run media has posted AI-generated videos featuring dancing robots and fraught consumers and poking fun at America's tariff policy. In a moment, we'll show you one of the intriguing videos currently going viral. And could AI-powered 3D printing drive a boom in transforming manufacturing in the US? We'll be speaking to the CEO of furniture company Hadi, who's revolutionising furniture manufacturing using AI and robotics. But where does that leave the human workers of the future? Well, with me is our regular AI Decoded contributor, Stephanie Hare. Stephanie, it has been an extraordinary few days. What is the potential impact on the US tech sector?
You know, it's massive, and I think Americans are actually waking up to that fact that we are part of a global community, and I say we, being American. It's not enough to be a superpower and go around bullying people and throwing your weight around when all of your companies are part of a global supply chain, for starters. And when you have a president who is trying to take on financial markets and could potentially turn a supply tariffs crisis into a financial crisis. And that's what we saw last week when he finally backed down, except in the case of China, where he doubled down.
And it has been, of course, incredibly tumultuous. And the nation currently facing the highest tariffs from the US is China, with China responding to the US tariff hike itself by imposing its own. Well, have a look at this latest AI-generated video that has gone viral, apparently poking fun at a potential Trump vision of increasing manufacturing jobs in the US. Stephanie, that was just a brief viral clip. It's pretty clever trolling, isn't it, of the US by China? You know, whoever's created it.
It is. And we also have to remember the fact that the Chinese people may have reason to feel offended, given that the US Vice President J.D. Vance referred to the Chinese people as peasants recently. So neither country is behaving particularly well, but I think the United States is potentially, in terms of diplomatic and trolling areas, the worst offender.
Well, Stephanie, let us bring in our guest this week for more on that. John Rogers, CEO and co-founder of Hadi, which uses AI-powered 3D printing to create furniture. And John, before we talk about your business, I just wondered, what did you make of that viral video? Is it a bit close to the bone for the US, or totally wide of the mark if robots are going to be doing these jobs in future anyway?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I loved seeing people trying to troll each other. I think it's good fun. I grew up working in China, and I've decided to place my business in the United States. So I am one of the rare people that has the ability and the experience to be able to see what it is. And I think that, you know, toning down the rhetoric a little bit and being able to laugh at oneself while we get about doing the business of the future is really what it's about.
Well, John, you've earned a Guinness World Record for producing the very first 3D printed car. So just tell us a bit more about how you operate and what you think about the sort of Trump rationale of, you know, bringing more jobs in manufacturing back to the US, because obviously there's been a lot of talk about whether AI and robotics will replace some human jobs. You have really taken that to quite an extreme in your own business.
It's an exciting time to be in business. I run a company called Hadi, and quite simply, we 3D print furniture. That's where we've started. The way we like to talk about it is Amazon started selling books, and now they sell the world. We've started printing furniture, and we expect to print the world. We've been working at it for probably 15 years, and it's now time in the last 2 years where Hadi has been formed to put this technology to use. And what that means is it means a new kind of job. It means that we have people that are that are working with robots. We have people that are designing for robots. And the way we think about that is if we were afraid of the internet killing printing presses, we wouldn't have all of the incredible jobs that are available in zines and blogs and in online reporting. Same thing goes for robotic printing. They'll change the jobs, they'll move them around. And so reshoring manufacturing happened long before the US presidency decided to happen. Abby has been at it and making it happen with our customers, and it's time. And also it's something that can happen in other cities all over the world. Robotic production changes the nature of the manufacturing industry everywhere.
John, let's just have a look at how your factory operates. We've got some footage to show you. Well, that's an intriguing look at some of the work that you do, John. I mean, do you have a sort of human staff level as well? And to what degree can this 3D printing be rolled out to some of the industries that have been talked about this week, like T-shirts and sneakers?
Oh, that's a really good question. As you noted, we came from starting doing this in vehicle and in the automotive full chassis world. There really isn't anything that 3D printing can't touch. For us, we work on things that are structural, things that are large. Of course, 3D printing has been seen now on fabrics and steel and other things like that. So additive manufacturing will come to many industries. We've just focused on furniture for this time right now and building out our first factory.
John, I'd be really curious to hear, how do humans work with the machines that you have in your factories?
A great question, Stephanie. So when we hire people to be robotic technicians, they'll typically come from a large manufacturing facility. Maybe they'll be earning $20 an hour. They're going to earn $30 an hour here. We're going to upskill them, and we're going to train them how to design, how to work. And so effectively, we just don't want the boring, repetitive jobs that are being done in that trolling video to be done by humans again. So the idea of reshoring manufacturing doesn't have to be reshoring stultifying jobs. And so when you ask to what degree, they're all over our factory and they're connected, and the indirect number of jobs that we create in our ecosystem is also quite large. So that's what we do. It's just not the same kind of hammer and nail and sanding and planing job that might have been done in a traditional Vietnamese furniture factory today.
And so many people, of course, are worried about job losses from AI. And so I guess one question would be, do you have the same number of humans working in your factories as somebody might have doing similar work even 10 years ago? Or are they the same number, but they're just doing different tasks?
I totally understand that question. So when Galax, North Carolina lost its furniture industry to Taiwan, which then went to China, which then went to Vietnam, there were ups and downs in the number of people that did furniture manufacturing. It's impossible for us to be able to say how many jobs our full factories will bring compared to an industry that never even existed in Florida. And so we're bringing in jobs that simply didn't exist here. And if we go to North Carolina, I don't know that we will be at the same staffing levels or more, but what I can say is we're bringing jobs back to the US that haven't existed here for 30 years.
And in your, the tools that you're using, the robots, and the materials that you're using for the 3D printing, is any of that being sourced from China or other areas which would face tariffs? And do you think that the AI industry itself is under threat from the trade war that's currently unfolding?
A great question. So, I think Oprah said it best, luck is opportunity meeting preparation. We've prepared for a supply base that is fully regionalized. So we can buy in Asia, we buy in the United States, and we buy in Europe. And so, no, we are not sensitive to Chinese trade tariffs associated with our raw feedstock coming in. We use primarily recycled feedstock, and we also recycle ourselves. And then as far as the second is concerned, I think the question of AI being sensitive to the trade war is a good one. Most of what it is that we make are industrial robotics that are trained by software, and that software and those industrial robots are made globally. So we do not see a great degree of sensitivity to the trade wars affecting our ability to have the machines that allow us to run. This is a very simple business when it comes down to it. It's about using good compute power, which is available in the United States domestically, in order to be able to make the furniture that we make with our robots.
And is there anything that you would advise viewers if they were interested in working in the kind of work that you're doing to prepare themselves, get educated, get skilled, or is it something that they could do once they are on the job?
Both, but I think that the age of gig work is upon us. And so just for our grand opening that we had recently, we had a screen that was designed by a designer in Tokyo collaborating with a designer in Florida, put on the robot within an hour, printed, and then mounted for our grand opening, and it was wall-sized. So those skills can be learned through training online, YouTube videos, Udacity, Udemy, any of the courses that are available. And so we don't believe so much that the four-year degree is necessary. We certainly encourage kids to learn, study, socialize, those sorts of things, but this is a new era, and learning online is a potent and powerful way for people to learn how to work in this economy.
Now, let's move on from AI helping to manufacture furniture to making art. And while some artists are very concerned about AI copying or replacing their work, others are experimenting with it, creating a new art medium. Stephanie went to Paris and the gallery Jeu de Paume to find out more.
Bonjour et bienvenue to the second episode of AI Decoded, set in Paris, France. It's springtime in Paris, so I've come across the channel for a little bit of inspiration. And where better to come than to the capital of art? Now, Paris has always been at the forefront of art and innovation, and I'm delighted to report it has not lost its luster. We are about to go into the Jeu de Paume, which is having a world-first exhibit on art and AI. The first exhibit we'll look at is Faces of ImageNet, based on a very controversial database. So what you have to remember with all of this is this looks like it's highly technical, but it's actually all human. By which I mean, it was humans that had to decide what each photo or picture looks like and then to describe what it is. So in this case, we've got a hidden camera in the screen and it's calling me a lass, it's calling me a donna, it's the Italian word. It thinks I'm an Italian woman of rank. It's exciting, we've got a real upgrade there. But what I've been experimenting with is because I'm wearing all black and I was being grumpy, it thought I was a widow. But when I smile, it thinks I'm Irish. So it's not sure. So the point is it's all running and you can see there's 8 million images coming up and different words. This matters because facial recognition and emotion recognition are technologies that are relying on human beings to label. Is that indeed Stephanie Hare? Is it a journalist? Or is it a widow? Or is it an Irish woman? Which one of those things is true?
Next up is something called reverse archaeology, based on neural networks.
What are we looking at here? Is this a photo?
This thing is generated with neural networks, particularly style GAN. It's like image generative neural network. And we trained it on the data set of antiquity statues that we collected, like 3D scanning the statues and then rendering and post-processing with another neural network.
How many statues are we talking?
It's like hundreds of them.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So 3D scans, all sorts of other ways of being able to visualize those statues. All of that was data that you fed in to the neural network to train it.
Yes.
In order to do what? What is it that you want this to be able to do?
We just took the same neural network that we used for other pieces here, and we wanted to demonstrate the latent space of the neural networks. Latent space is the knowledge space of neural network.
And finally, we go in for a deep dive into the anatomy of an AI system.
We started this work almost a decade ago now, essentially to track the global supply process of building a single AI device. In this case, the Amazon Echo, from which you might engage with Alexa if you're talking to it in the morning. We basically started by thinking about what is the birth, the life, and the death of a system like this, a small consumer device. And we started by tracking the mines where the minerals are extracted. And then we moved into the smelting and the refining and the transportation, and then into the data pipelines, and ultimately to the end of life, where people throw these devices away, generally in just 3 years, into e-waste tips in places like Ghana and Pakistan.
How did you even begin to map this out? Because this is complexity on a much bigger scale.
Well, we started from a dot, one piece of information in some kind of like collaborative mapping process. So we basically started to draw, and then the first question is like how we are going to categorize this space that we are researching. And then we started to think about what are the relation between computation, power. But basically we spent like 4 years inside of this space, inside of this map. And it was like really extreme experience.
Do you use AI at all to make this or to
No.
work on it in any way, or are you handcrafted and all human?
Completely handcrafted. I mean, I know it's so strange in this era of generative AI, which can produce anything, images, texts, films, you name it. This is the opposite. This is going back to very traditional archival-based research, books, discussions, and then hand illustrations. So, in many ways, this is a giant work of handcrafting. People tend to think of AI as a very recent technology, as completely revolutionary, that there's nothing like it on Earth before that has ever happened in this way. But what we've learned by doing this research, and hopefully what visitors can see when they come and spend time in this room, is in fact that the AI that we have today is the result of decisions and forms of government and forms of corporate power that have emerged over centuries. So AI does have a 500-year history when we think of it in this way.
Amazing. Well, still with me is our regular AI Decoded contributor, Stephanie Hare, and our guest today, John Rogers. And Stephanie, that looked amazing. It's just opening, isn't it, this exhibition?
So it's actually opening right now. We're doing a bit of quantum broadcasting here. We were there this morning for the press opening, so we were able to report. We're bringing it to you tonight, while in Paris they are hopefully celebrating with champagne and having a wonderful first exhibit, all the artists.
And John, I don't know whether you were able to see that too. Obviously, the whole question of the AI, use of AI by artists, by musicians, by writers has provoked a massive storm of controversy, albeit in a very different context.
I mean, to me, it's just beautiful to see this recombinated human intelligence. We talk about it as being artificial, but Stephanie, you pointed out so well that these are humans that are classifying you being a widow or not, and then the AI is trying to assimilate it quickly. I think it's such a gorgeous evolution of human intelligence, whether it's 500 years or more. We've tokenized language now with GPT-3 and beyond, and I think this is just really powerful. It's beautiful.
And John, you're obviously very much involved in design. I mean, what is your wider take on this question of who owns copyright, who owns the rights to creativity? I mean, is there a real threat to the creative industry from AI that needs to be regulated?
There's absolutely a threat. Whether or not it needs to be regulated, or whether the response from the market will simply be to say that licensing is what should happen. As far as Hattie is concerned, when we use someone's design, we immediately put it into the furniture. The use of a blockchain is exactly the right way to do this, so that forever, as the digital design is pushed forward, if you tap a piece of furniture on our RFID tag, or if you find one, you know who designed it. I think that is unregulated or regulated exactly what should happen, so that people retain their moral rights. That's our feeling.
I mean, I have written a book, and I can tell you right now that I would be really, really annoyed if someone took my book and didn't pay for it. And I can tell you that it also actually has happened. So Meta has gotten into a lot of trouble for taking many, many authors' books and using their hard-earned words to train their data sets and their algorithms. And our consent wasn't sought. We weren't given any compensation. And just in no other field would you say that. If I were a pharmaceutical company, If I were a weapons manufacturer, I could get some sort of legal redress, right? But for artists and writers, we seem to think, or songwriters and musicians, we seem to think this is okay. And the thing is, we want to support creatives and artists. None of us want to live in a world where we don't have art and creativity, but we're going to have to support and protect it.
And John, do you think there is a way forward that is feasible to introduce regulation? Because you need global regulation, and the current US administration does not look as though it is at all keen on that.
Okay, so the way I feel about it is today, when you want to know if something is truly exceptional, you end up waiting to see it in a museum, like the Centre Pompidou in Paris or other things like that. But what's wonderful is that when you have an artist's work on the blockchain, and I'm not talking about a JPEG, I'm talking about something that is real, that is manifest, goes far beyond Amazon's Alexa or something that is sung. It's something that is very physical. When you have an artist's provenance that's in there and you can track them all the way through time, I think that settles the question of whether somebody should be remunerated for their moral right or their moral authority to a design. I don't think it's a question for the courts. I think if it is well executed, you'll get the passion of the designers to work with you, and then they end up getting paid, and it doesn't need to be a question of the US courts. So to me, that's the right way to go forward, and it helps to harmonize how design and manufacturing comes together outside of the courts.
Stephanie, what's your take on this? As you know, there's been a political ongoing row about some UK proposals. Brussels is seen as much more pro-regulation, and the US very much not.
I just don't think that we have to worry about taking away profit from some of the big US tech companies, which are, of course, making money hand over fist to the tune of billions of dollars every year. They can afford to pay writers and artists for the work that they've been stealing.
And Stephanie, just to bring it back to our sort of wider theme today, my one sort of question that's come out of the tariff row really is the tech companies obviously have taken a hit, as so many companies have, as to what's happened in the last few days. Is there a risk from Trump's point of view that actually China has the chance to surge ahead if they are not going to be financially penalised for sourcing the materials that they need for their AI industry? And the AI sort of arms race has been such a sort of political worry, hasn't it, between the US and China?
John, I'm sure we'll have thoughts on this from the manufacturing perspective. I would speak to the more global trend, which is that right now the United States has burned a lot of its soft power and trust globally. So even if things were to calm down in the next week or two, or even between the US and China alone, I think people will have very, very long memories of the flex that just happened this week. And they will be thinking about how to protect their supply chains, how to protect their business and build in that resilience. That's going to take a long time, though. You can't unwind supply chains in a week.
John, what do you say? I mean, do you think China might have been given an advantage in the AI world as a result of these tariffs?
I was working in China in 1995 when the US was liberally shipping manufacturing expertise in neodymium mining and in motor manufacturing to China. And so we gave that capability in the spirit of getting quarterly profits up by reducing cost. Now we're trying to bring that innovation back as we gave it away, and that's very challenging. But when we look at it, it was to the benefit of the stock market to do it. And now we see that innovation has been lost and people want to reshore jobs in the economy. So it isn't just the last 5 years or the last week. This is something that started in 1995, and Jack Welch was ballyhooed and made a hero for it as the leader of GE.
John, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much. We're out of time. John Rogers, Stephanie Hare, thank you both so much for being with us here on AI Decoded. We'll see you next time.